This is the House of Hockey podcast on the Hockey Podcast Network. Hockey is more than a game, it's a lifestyle. It's you, the diehard supportive fans, your favorite players who are on the team you cheer for, and the organization who supports them.
The companies that make your gear, bags, and beer league sweaters. The hockey moms and hockey dads, and everything else that makes this House of Hockey your home. Come on in. I'm Breezy.
And I'm Rae Rae.
And this is our house.
Welcome to the House of Hockey podcast. This is episode 92. We're still keeping track for you. My name is Rae Rae. I'm one of your hosts.
And I'm your other host, Breezy. And we have a guest this week. Jam-packed. We're going to keep our pre-show really short. We're having a sip of coffee here. Awesome.
Kind of like our guest in the NHL. He had a cup of coffee there.
That is true. Yeah, our guest, Shayne McMorrow, aka the Sheriff. So he has quite the story, and he goes through it. He goes through it all. It was super interesting to hear it. You can read on him if you were to just pause this and do a little quick read on him. He played all over the place. He got himself, I don't necessarily know if he got himself into some trouble, but there was some trouble that had followed him a little bit. He touches on that. He touches on life.
And by trouble, we mean he went to prison. So yeah, big trouble. The kind of trouble you don't want to find yourself in.
True. Yes. But with every bad situation, I think comes a good situation, and he has definitely grown from it. And he's doing good things for himself. And so you're going to hear all about it.
Oh yeah. I mean, Shayne, from what we heard, and if you look up his story, like you were saying, he was a good guy. He won like a community award and is always giving back. And the way he decided to approach the really unfortunate lawsuit and charges that he was facing and the jail time is really an inspiring story, along with his time in the league and what happened when he got out of prison and he still was able to play hockey. And I think it's one of those stories that will hopefully leave you feeling good and inspired at the end, because it's got a pretty good ending, because he's still here and he's doing podcasts and is, living a good life.
Yeah. And, taking what he used to do prior to prison and really amping that up. I mean, like you said, he community service and was just a stand-up guy. And now he's brought that kind of full circle again and learning from certain things and really being a motivational speaker, as he will go into that. And he's been super inspiring, and he said some things to us, and I think both you and I have taken that away and have thought about it. And it was really, really awesome to talk to Shayne, and it was quite the honor, actually. It was awesome.
Mm-hmm. It was. We'll read you a couple of his stats, because we didn't really get into too much of it in the interview. We did some, but I figured I'll just read some of this, and Breezy, you can read the rest of it. But he spent a lot of his time playing in the LNAH, which is the League of North American Hockey, but it's in French, and it's not necessarily known for, and I'm not going to try, because I tried to speak French in the episode. You'll hear it's horrible. But so the league is not known for its skill level. It's mostly enforcers, and has a reputation for some on-ice antics, which is very, different for a league. It's a different style of play that Shayne will talk about. And it's known as the toughest hockey league, and it averages 3.2 fights a game.
Yeah, so Shayne played one game with the Sabres against the Leafs. So he was drafted by the Sabres. He played for the Chicago Wolves of the AHL prior to signing with the LNAH. And then ended up playing overseas with the Belfast Giants of the EIHL, and then played for the expansion team for the Dundee Stars. those EIAHEQC
You
teams
nailed
really
it.
get me going.
You nailed it. I think what I found most fascinating about our conversation with Sean was about the Belfast Giants and what Northern Ireland hockey, right? Northern Ireland?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Uh, the reason that team is so impactful on the community in Ireland is something that I had not thought of, and I don't think we've heard here. While we have talked to people, in Ireland, in the UK about hockey, the way Sean talks about it and explains it is so eye-opening and incredible to see that the sport of hockey can bridge decades long, centuries long of fighting between the country. So I think you'll enjoy that part too.
Guys, my name is Sean McMorrow, aka The Sheriff. Recently, I've started a new sports hockey podcast called The Sheriff Podcast. But more importantly, I'm from a wonderful family from Toronto, born in Vancouver, raised in Scarborough, and I'm here to make some noise. My dream is to be a public speaker and sports broadcaster and big personality on TV. Very nice to meet you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming up.
That might be the best guest intro we've ever had, Breezy.
I know. I feel like we just need to send him like all of our intros and then he could just do them and then send them back to us.
Hype everybody up real big. Exactly.
That's what I had to do with my hockey teams, guys. I had to try to motivate. I was the team cheerleader, team tough guy. I had a whole bunch of titles. Okay. Team motivator.
I mean, there's so much to start with, and I didn't mean to jump you, Breezy, but let's start with just like the sheriff. What is that about? What's that? That's a nickname, clearly. And you were telling us a little bit before we hit record about your family all has nicknames, but you're the sheriff. How did you get that name?
Okay, so the first time that I was given that name, the first time I heard it was one of my owners in this league, the professional hockey league in Quebec, Canada. Okay. And the owner said to me, he had a French accent. He's like, from now on, we call you Le Sheriff, which is the sheriff in French, right? And so that was when it was first born. But guys, honestly, it didn't really start becoming big and noticeable until I played for the Belfast Giants. They asked me what my nickname was. I told them it was the sheriff. They really promoted it. This is actually the design of the T-shirt that they made, Belfast Giants made with me when I was there. This is back in 2010, 2011. And yeah, so Belfast, it blew up. We were selling these T-shirts. We were selling little badges. So even if I wasn't your favorite player, you could at least put my pin on your jersey and still support the sheriff mentality. And pretty much what it is it's a guy that patrols the ice for his team, takes care of business, and sticks up for his teammates.
Exactly. I love that. I like the French version of it, Le Sheriff. That's pretty cool.
That's what my close, sorry. That's what my close friends will say. They'll say Le Sheriff because they know it started in Quebec, right? So if you ever hear someone say Le Sheriff, they're really, really close to me.
That's cool. We've talked to a couple people in Scotland and Ireland. Breezy, who is the friend? Which team does he play for?
Tristan Cameron Harper.
Oh yeah, the international model.
The international model.
He's got a lot of man. That guy's some people might be triple threats. That guy's like a 10 times threat, man. He does a lot of stuff, plays professional hockey. He's like an actor. He's like a model. He does all this extracurricular stuff. Really cool dude.
And he's like a mountain man. He can live off the land. He does like these things. You're just like, what? And he's like telling you about these flowers and how you can eat them. And I'm like, what?
Medicinal flowers or?
I think survival.
Maybe.
Okay, yeah. Just to interrupt you real quick. Now, I haven't seen Tristan in 10 years, so I couldn't even imagine what he's up to now. I'm talking about Tristan probably when he was in his early 20s. I think he's probably in his early 30s now, right? Because this is Scotland for me was 2011, right? Okay. 10 years ago. Yeah. Really cool kid, though. I'm sure he's grown up really nicely.
Yeah, he's a nice guy. We chat just via internet, Instagram, and whatnot. I worked for a company, and we were chatting with him. That's kind of how we got to know each other. So we keep in contact. He's a good guy, super funny. But yeah,
Breezy's like, I'm trying to get him to come on, but he's in the mountains again, so I can't. I don't know where he is. So it's like,
That's true. Very interesting. Like he's up to that now.
Anyway, that's our connection to what that is. And we also know one of the girls who plays in the leagues over there too. So we've heard a little bit about the hockey over there, but what was your experience like playing for the Belfast Giants?
Well, I mean, that's such a great question because it just brings up like really, really good memories. First off, it was the funnest time of my life. Okay. First time that I've lived outside of North America, like obviously I played in the States for 6 years, but this was overseas. Canada and the US are so similar. It's not really like moving away, you know what I mean? So I was so proud to play for that team because I have ancestry from there. Like I may not look like it, but I'm half Irish, hence the Sean McMorrow name, right? And, I was very proud to play over there. And it was just everything worked out. I got a lot of support and I just had a wonderful time overall.
And so you obviously have a lot of history that had happened over there. Can you kind of jump into that and kind of, because I believe you started getting more of your name in the sheriff while you were over there, as you've already mentioned, but primarily we did a little read on you, primarily when you got into a little, I don't know how you would call it. How would you describe it?
Are you describing like the legal stuff with me or the history of Ireland?
Sorry.
I think the illegal stuff, the law, the things with the law.
Yeah, the things.
Yes.
With the
okay.
law.
So that's the same time frame of when that came up, and what it was, guys, is I actually you see me smiling right now, but it took me a long time to be able to talk about this. It was a devastating thing that happened. I was indicted in a marijuana conspiracy case based in Rochester, New York, right at the end of the season in 2010 when I was playing for the Belfast Giants. I was told by a very high-priced and prominent lawyer that it was in my best interest to voluntarily come in to face the charges, that it was pretty much like a publicity stunt, and that if I came in, that I'd be able to get bail right away with no restrictions and no conditions, and that he would be able to sort this thing out, and that eventually, although it may be embarrassing, we'll get thrown out. And he's like, sometimes guys have to go through this. Don't worry, this is just a publicity stunt, so on and so forth. So I ended up coming back, listening to my lawyer, and pretty much, guys, the way that the legal system works is that if you involve yourself in the wrong crowd, sometimes you can get caught up in a conspiracy case, because what they'll do is they'll catch one person that's involved, and then they'll say, you know what, if you want to get out of this, you got to tell us something. So in my case, it was a couple friends that I hadn't talked to them in years, and pretty much what they said is that whatever they were doing, that an NHL player was their boss, and it was me, right? And they were willing to tell them about it if they could get off their charges. And that's what happened with me. So I made the mistake with being involved with the wrong people. When I lived in Rochester, New York, I had a lot of different groups of friends and a lot of circles. And, I was the man of the year for community service that I won twice out of the 4 years that I played there, right? And I was very proud of that award. So you look at it from the law enforcement's view, they have an opportunity to be in the paper every day, to have the man of the year for community service. And let's make it a little bit more interesting, a black hockey player, that's being said that he's being involved with a drug conspiracy. It was marijuana, but a drug conspiracy is the title. And, and they jumped all over it. And unfortunately, it was to my expense, right? So what did I learn from it? I learned a lot. I had to go through a situation where I was told that if I pled guilty, that I'd be receiving a probation sentence. And the outcome of that, with, 25 family members in the courtroom, another 20 of my fiance's family, who was from Rochester, New York, in the courtroom, a big party planned in Toronto, Canada, where I'm from, for that evening, because everyone was expecting it to be a probation sentence. And then, there was a bomb dropped saying that there was a sentence of 24 months. So when I first heard that, the first thing I thought of was, 24 months is 2 years.
Yeah.
And I almost passed straight out. And the unfortunate thing is that most people in my situation that are involved in conspiracy cases, if they know they're going to receive a little bit of time, what their lawyers will do is they'll negotiate a self-surrender, where even if they are, like sentenced to amount of time, because they're a first-time offender with no weapons and no violence in the case, they're allowed to kind of get their affairs together. They get about 30 days to do that. Their families are allowed to drive them to the facility. You're actually able to prepare mentally, maybe see a counselor, like this is, something that you got involved with, you got to deal with it. You got to deal with it, the best way. And I wasn't able to do that. It was a complete shock. And then it was like, see you later, sheriff, in the county sheriff's car. Right. So it was shocking. It was unfair. It was surprising. There's so many words that you can use for it. Right. Lucky thing for me is I had incredible support from my family. My hockey team that I was currently played for kept in close contact with me, where I was able to make a comeback right after I was done having to deal with that. And yeah, I just, support's the biggest thing. I made the best of the time while I was in there. I thought, while I'm here, I might as well try to improve myself, so I was a major junior player, which is, in Canada, you either take the Division I route, like my brother did for basketball, or you play major junior, which is kind of like a semi-professional league for 16 to 21-year-olds. And a lot of the guys, they don't finish their high school because they turn pro. And that's what happened with me. I never finished my high school. I was 2 credits short. Figured I'd get it online. Never ended up getting it, but I sure got it when I went to Moshannon Valley Correction Center. I got my GED, and then I ended up teaching the GED, and then I ended up teaching an exercise class. I ended up taking a bunch of business courses, really figuring out what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. Took a really interesting class called Paradigm Thinking, which is a class where you learn your true values, living in the here and now, what the true meaning of success is. So I really feel that I made the best of that time, and I learned a lot. And now that I'm trying to be this big public person that I am, I have a great story to tell, and I have a really strong message for the young ones when I do my public appearances for the public speaking. And that was a very long answer, so I apologize.
No, that's it's a long, you've got a big story to tell.
It's definitely an unfortunate thing that had happened, but at the same time, it almost seems like it was kind of a blessing in disguise for you, because it really helped you kind of go into this other part of your life, which is really cool. And you obviously have a really good story, and you've been an inspiration to so many, and are going to continue to inspire so many people too. And it's just an unfortunate circumstance, but at the end of it, I think you really did come out on top, and a good person, a better person. And not to mention, you were a great person going into it with all of your, community service and everything that you have already done. So incredible story that you definitely have there, for sure.
I appreciate that, Breezy. And the thing is, Breezy, is it's a lot of what you said is true, but now here's the problem. The problem is yes, I do have a great story. The problem is, yeah, I love all the stuff I did in the AHL, doing all those appearances. I love talking in front of crowds. I was just kind of groomed to be this public speaker, motivational speaker guy now, right? Had my downfall that I got through. I'm a professional athlete, so I resonate with people. They want to, you know what I mean? Like I've been told all this, right? The only problem is that it's a long road to get in there because of what happened too. A lot of people don't really want to mess with you because you got in trouble, and they'd rather, listen to a Harlem Globetrotter that didn't get in trouble than a hockey player that got in trouble and now wants to talk about it. Like, you know what I mean? So yeah. I still haven't really got to where I want to be, like as far as what we're talking about. I'm so passionate about it, and I'm having so much fun doing my podcast, preparing for it, that I'm just riding the crest of the wave right now.
Yeah. Do you think that the arrest and all of that had a direct impact on your career playing hockey after? I mean, I know you said you were able to get out when you got out, you played, but do you think that put like a big, let's not bring Sean into this team, or let's not bring him up to this league? Was that sort of your experience, or no?
1000%.
Yeah.
And the reason why is, first off, I'm a Canadian citizen, and right now I'm not allowed to cross the border. Right.
Oh.
So even if I wanted to play in the ECHL, even if I wanted to play in the AHL, I'm not allowed to. Right. So that's one. Second, the FBI notified the Buffalo Sabres, said that they were investigating one of their players. I found that out a couple of years later. And they really, if there's any possible way for someone, for an institution or whatever to mess with somebody, they did with me. They really did. You know what I mean? And like, I have to own mistakes that I made in my life. I definitely didn't deserve that. And no. I was targeted for reasons that, only they can explain. And, what the cliche is it doesn't really matter how hard you fall. It's just how you bounce back up. So, I mean, yeah, that's motivating and stuff. I wish I didn't have to go through all that, but like the measure of character is really how you react to bad things. So I'm just going to have to do my best. And, eventually, if I'm going along the right path, I am going to feel content in my life 100%. And I know I will.
This week's episode of the House of Hockey podcast is brought to you by football fans. I'm sure we all love an action-packed, high-scoring NFL game, but with the latest no-brainer from DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, you'll be a winner once a single point is scored. New customers who bet just $1 on any team to score can win $100 in free bets. It's that simple. If Sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, you can still get in on the NFL action. Everyone can play for huge cash prizes all season long with DraftKings daily fantasy sports contests. DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code THPN, that's THPN, for the Hockey Podcast Network. Bet $1 on any team to score and win $100 in free bets. If they score, you score with promo code THPN this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older, New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only, new customers only, minimum $5 deposit and $1 wager required. One per customer, restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
There are people who play professional sports. I mean, there's football players, there's basketball players. I mean, there's even baseball players who have gotten themselves into a lot of trouble, but it seems to be overlooked and they're still able to play.
Yeah.
Do you think because hockey still isn't measured up to those other professional leagues, that it is treated differently? And why do you think hockey is looked down on as like a number 4 on the list compared to football, baseball, and basketball?
Well, I mean, football, I'll answer the last question first because it's freshest.
Yeah.
So football, basketball, and baseball, I mean, that's America's pastime, right? Like baseball, I mean, the NFL, nothing will ever beat the NFL. They're the biggest money powerhouse.
Right.
Baseball is supposed to be known as America's pastime, right? So, and then basketball is just so easy, accessible to be able to play it. Like anybody can play it. You just got to find a ball, and you can use anything as a hoop, as we've seen a lot of examples over our course of our lives, right? Where hockey is harder to access. Hockey is more expensive. Hockey's not available in certain areas. So that's what hockey's trying to do now, where there's programs like hockey equality. Every kid should be able to play. These are programs that are in Canada. They're really trying to get, you know, kids not only from the inner cities, but just kids that are from different countries and that move to Canada and the States, and maybe they've never seen hockey before. And they should be able to get introduced to it just like any other kid should, right? So the reason is that hockey is not accessible as the other three sports. In Canada, it's different because, you know, our hockey is your baseball, you know what I mean? But like, as far as people getting the second chances and stuff, it all depends if you're in that sweet US of A, guys. Like, if you're American and you're in the States and you get in trouble, you could still play because you don't have to cross any borders. You know what I mean? Like, unless it's basketball and you have to go and play the Raptors, and, you know, that's only one team, right? Like, or baseball, the Blue Jays, like, only one team. Every team's in the States. So that's the difference. Like, if I was American, then I probably would be playing in the last 10 years in the East Coast or AHL. You know what I mean? Because I would, like, you know, the team would have to, whatever, like, I'd figure it out, right? But it'd be more realistic than me being in Canada, not be able to cross the border, not being able to participate against any of those American teams. It's just not going to happen, right?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Never thought of it that way, actually.
Yeah, but that league in Quebec, though, that's why I was playing in that league. Like, that league in Quebec, the teams were all just in Canada, right? So I was able to play there. I had a lot of fun, you know, met a lot of great people, and I was really happy to be able to play for that team that I ended up coming back to after that incident.
The LNAH.
How do you say it?
League, the North American Hockey, like, it's in French, right? So it's the LNAH, yeah. The North American Hockey League in English. They laugh at me. They laugh at me there because I have I have the biggest English accent, right? So to them, it's like when we hear like a really deep guy from France talk, and he's like, blah, 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 blah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's how they're hearing it when I talk. So they just laugh when I try to talk French. They appreciate that I'm trying, but it makes everybody laugh seeing a big guy with a weird accent trying to speak their language, right?
How long did you end up playing in that league then after your return from your vacation?
Okay, so I played 2 more seasons, and then I ended up, you know, retiring, and I made a comeback and played another year.
Nice.
Oh, you pulled Mike Fisher.
Because they kept calling and saying, do you want to come back? Do you want to come back? And I'm just kind of like, I want to play still. Okay. You know, offering me to fly. Like, I was staying in Toronto, and they were flying me to Montreal every weekend just for the 2 games. So I had a contract like that. It was pretty cool, actually. This was right before the pandemic hit. This was in 2019.
Wow.
And then they shut the league down in March of 2020. So that same season, they shut everything down. And then there was no hockey for a couple of years, and now everything's just started up again.
Crazy. So can you kind of take people kind of in the arena with you? So the LNAH, they're so hard to try to pronounce these things. They're known for having more of the fighters in there, correct?
Yeah, tough guys,
so
yeah.
What is kind of like a game if someone were to come and watch it?
Okay, so
is it all just penalty minutes or what?
Well, it used to be like there's the old LNAH and then there's the new LNAH. Now the old LNAH, it's all about the amount of guys that are willing to do it on each side, the amount of tough guys on each team, right? So before, let's say pre 2012, okay, pre 2012. There would be 5 tough guys minimum on every team, hockey team in that league.
Whoa.
The whole 4th line would all be fighters. So the center, left winger, and right winger, all fighters. Then there would be like at least 1 or 2 of the defensemen that would also be fighters. So there'd be 5. So you could start a game with 5 straight fights, everyone on the ice, like not all at the same time. Like, and you know, and they're doing the ding, 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 like in the loudspeaker. And like most fighters have their own songs at their home arena. Like my song was shipping off to Boston. You guys know shipping off to Boston? That was my song. That's my song for my podcast too. So whenever I hear that song, I really get fired up. You know, it reminds me of, you know, like doing the show in the league. So now what they do is they have about 2 guys on each team. So you still have that action, but it's actually a pretty skilled league now, and it's become pretty respectable, right? And they kind of had to go this route because all the other leagues were.
It sounds like a mesh between WWE and the NHL.
Honestly, when I first got there in 2007, I've been to this league like 3 different times, right? The first time I went there, that's exactly how it was. I couldn't believe it. No, I'm serious. Like, it was like, you just don't, it's so different from the other leagues that it takes you a couple weekends to really get used to it. Like, it's like, wow. Like, I remember there being a bench clearing brawl, my second game. And I don't know if you guys ever heard of John Nasty Moraski, but it was against his team. And I was so, because in that league, you fight twice and you're out. So I was the number 1 for my team. Moraski was number 1 for his team. So we fought once in the first period and once in the second period, and then we got kicked out. Then there was this brawl that happened in the third period, and I was in my street clothes because I had been kicked out 10 minutes before, and I'm just like, thank God I got kicked out. I don't know what I would have done because I would have been expected to act crazy, but it was only my second game in the league, so my mentality wasn't there yet, and I had no idea what I would have done in that brawl because I wasn't ready for it yet. It took me a couple of weekends to really get the mentality of what it is, guys, is unless you're like one of those guys that go to bars looking for fights, like I'm not that type of guy. Like I can count the amount of fights I've had off the ice on one hand. You know what I mean? Like I don't like to get altercations off the ice. So for a guy like me, it's more about acting. It's about getting into a role, getting into a character. And that's why this makes it easier for me because I'm the sheriff now, right? I can act this way. Once I get on the ice, I'm a certain way. Once I get off, unless it's with the fans, I'm not like that anymore, right? Like I'm a different guy, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a persona that you can adopt. Did you have anybody that was like a mentor to you or explained the league or was like, Sean, think of it like this or that? Like, did you have anybody or did you just sort of figure it out?
I mean, there was like I had my agent at the time that didn't want me to come to the league because I was playing for the Chicago Wolves at Allstate Arena. But that's what it used to be called. I don't know what it's called now, but
Allstate Arena. Yes. I went to concerts at that
right by O'Hare Airport, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's where the whole fan base is based out. That's how the Blackhawks and Wolves make it work. The Blackhawks got downtown and to the east, and then the Wolves had the whole airport area, right? And so I was playing there, but I wasn't getting into the lineup. They had such a strong team that year. I think they ended up winning the Calder Cup that year, and we had all these older players, and they wanted me there. There just wasn't really room for me, and I was healthy scratch, you know, sitting in the stands every game. And I'm competitive, like I want to play, and I kept getting calls from this Quebec league. We're going to give you this amount of money, this amount of money. It kept going up, and I kept saying to my agent, look, and they're offering all this money. I really want to play. He's like, look, once you go there, you're probably not going to come back because it's like, you know, it's kind of like a different tier. And you know, but me, the competitor that I was, like, you know, obviously I was 28 years old, so I wanted to make some money, but I also really wanted to play, right? So I'm a player. I want to play. So I ended up going, and when I went, it was really, really crazy at that. So, but he was able to kind of prepare me a little bit, but it was only what he'd gotten through other people. To answer your question, like about the mentor and stuff. So
you figured it out.
Yeah, my agent kind of prepared me a little bit, but it wasn't enough for the chaos.
So if you could go back and play in any of the leagues that you've played in, which one would you play in?
Well, for sure the NHL. You know what I mean? I mean, like, well, okay, no. I'll answer your question. You're talking about like a league that I played at least a few seasons in. Right. I loved the AHL. I loved playing in Rochester. I played there 4 straight years. It was great city. Met a lot of great people. And you know, like I was engaged to a girl from there. You know, sometimes things don't work out, but like, you know, I was it was probably the AHL. The AHL, to answer your question.
if not the NHL. Like if
The NHL, yeah. I mean, I got a sniff of the NHL. Like I got called up for the one regular season game, and like how it works when you're with the AHL team, everybody goes to training camp, right? And if you have a good camp, you last longer than the guys that get cut right away. And sometimes you get to play some preseason games. So every year I was able to play preseason. So it's the same thing. It's just instead of a regular season, it's preseason. There's still 18,000 people in the stands. Still 75% NHL players, maybe like 25% AHL players, because it's exhibition and, but it was a great experience. I'll never forget it. And I'll remember it for the rest of my life.
I want to go back to something you were saying before. I feel like we don't have enough time to cover everything, but
sorry for the blah, blah, blah. Guys.
No. I love it. I'm just waiting to hear
like a part 2 to the Sheriff podcast.
I'll do it on air. I commit to a part 2.
Okay.
You girls are so awesome. You guys are so awesome, man. It's the funnest time I've ever had on a show.
Oh, good. I have 2 more questions that I want to ask, but they're completely unrelated. So I want to go back to what you said about your motivational speaking and when you go speak at schools and stuff. Give us what is the thing that you tell them? What is the biggest motivation you can give to them? Because whether they're kids in school or people listening to this show, we can all use a little bit of motivation in our lives or some sort of uplifting inspiration, because it's, life isn't easy, no matter what your experience is.
It's not. And that's such a wonderful question. And I think the best example that I should give is when I was recruited for the Belfast Giants, it was to be that guy, okay? Because that part of the world, for the people that don't know, Northern Ireland, which is its own country, which is part of Great Britain, it's actually not part of the Republic of Ireland, has a strong history of trouble. And what it is it's the Protestants against the Catholics, and they've been at war for hundreds of years. It has not finished yet. The Belfast Giants is used by the British government to bring these communities together. Why? Because it's a new sport. It is colors that were chosen to be neutral. You're not allowed to bring any other jerseys or sports team apparel into the arena, only a Belfast Giants jersey or civilian clothes. There's no national anthem. It's a place where there's peace, where 2 people that might be at war can come sit beside each other, have a pint, and enjoy a game together. And that's how you start bringing the communities together. Now, they needed a player to do promotional appearances, motivational speeches on a weekly basis. They said at least 2 or 3 appearances a week. I said, I love it. Bring me out there. So what I would do is, and the reason why my message resonated with those kids so much, because it would be a busload of Protestant kids, a busload of Catholic kids. They'd all be sitting beside each other. So I would say, guys, I don't look like the normal hockey player that you usually see, right? I don't. So what my message is that if I didn't take a risk and joined a group of people that may not have had all the similarities that I do, then I would never be able to play hockey. I would never be able to be here with you guys all right now, and I wouldn't be able to do my dream. But because I was willing to take that risk, I'm able to do that. That's why we're here together, guys. You guys are all alike. You guys all love the same things. Yes, you have different religious paths, but that doesn't matter, because if you guys separate, then I would never be here, right? So that's kind of how I was able to do it. And pretty much what it is it's like that kind of message is take a risk for your happiness, take a risk to be successful. And if you do take that risk, you'll be rewarded as long as it has the right values, right? So that's probably the best example that I can give, because we just freshly talked about Belfast, right?
I love it. That's a great example. That's something that people in the States, and I would assume in Canada, is religious fighting and border and all of this is a little unfamiliar. But I think that that's a great thing, because we all have our differences, political, all of these other things that can really tear people apart. And even hockey teams and cheering for your hockey team can tear households apart. But Breezy's and my differences of the teams we cheer for and our thoughts about the game is what brings us here too. and is what allows us to have this opportunity for her and I. So I think your example is spot on. I want to ask you about marijuana and the NHL. If you think the league should allow marijuana, like, should it be legal in the league since it's legalized in so many different states and things like that? Do you think it has some benefit to the players and the stress that they're under and all of that, or should it remain as it is?
I think that it should be allowed, Rachel, and the reasons being is me having the role that I had so many friends that did the same thing as me. The example that I'm using is the reason of why marijuana should be able to be used. And it's because a tough guy, let's say 5 years ago, because it's not so much now, he would break his hand in a fight. He would have to get a surgery. He would be prescribed painkillers.
Addictive painkillers.
Then he starts buying heroin because he needs that feeling and his body's dependent on it, and opiates. And that. And I can't confirm it, but the boogeyman, I believe that was the case. It was Derek Bugard. There's a lot of guys that happened to. Now, if they were able to smoke medicinal marijuana, if they were able to get their CBD, if they were able to do all of that, is that not a better option?
Yes.
Of course it is. So, and you have to understand, Rachel, I'll take you one step further. Canada, it's nationwide, honey.
Oh, that's right.
The government sells us our weed here.
That's right.
In every neighborhood in Canada, there's a dispensary. There's this dispensary about a 2-minute walk from here. Okay. And that's how you get your marijuana in Canada now, from the government. Okay. Right. So you can imagine how silly it is of trouble that I got into.
Right.
Now, like, it's, you know what I mean? Like, it's completely different mindset on cannabis now. And that's not to take away anything and what you're supposed to and supposed to not do. And everybody, you're supposed to follow the law and do the right thing. And you know what I mean? But yeah, so I to answer your question through and through, the cannabis should definitely be allowed in the NHL because it would get guys to stop doing things that could really damage their lives and harm their careers.
I agree with you. I just wanted to hear your opinion on it, having, spent time in the leagues and being the sheriff and the fighter and having to do all of that. I mean, I think there's a lot of benefit to it. So that's, I was curious to see.
Guys like Darren McCarty, Riley Cote, they're big advocates. Darren McCarty's got his own company. He's 4-time Stanley Cup champion. He was on my show. He talked a lot about it. And I think the NHL should really adapt to that.
I agree. Give us a story, like a fun, funny, ridiculous story. Like, we had a girl on the other week, and she had 120 penalty minutes in one of her college games, or a funny prank, or a ridiculous fight, or something that you can share.
Ricky parties.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got one. Okay. No, I had a guest on lately. His name is Trevor Wiffen. He's a big time lawyer in the Toronto area, but he's also a sports guy, and he hosts this big, huge conference. It's actually the biggest sports conference in Canada, and it's at this big hotel in Toronto. And so I had him as a guest on my show, and sorry.
It's okay.
He was my general manager when I played junior. So I was only 18 years old, and I was playing for a junior team out here. And it was a time in my life where I was very arrogant, very cocky, kind of a rebel a little bit. And I was playing for a team that was only based like 40 minutes away from my hometown. So I had a vehicle at the time, and I decided that I was going to bring all my friends to the game. So unfortunately, we left a little bit late. And to add on to that, it was extremely bad weather, lots of snow. And, so long story short, I definitely did not make it on time. I'm an 18-year-old guy with three of my buddies. So obviously I'm playing the role. I'm making it out like it's not a big deal. Meanwhile, I know I'm so much shit, right? So I go into the dressing room and I see that my jersey's not in the stall. So like obviously I'm like, okay, they must have scratched me, because when I got in there, they were already out for warm up. Like they were out for warm ups. But if I really wanted to, I probably could have got dressed really quick and like been there for the last couple of minutes of warm up, right? Jersey's not in there. I'm like, okay, obviously they scratched me. So instead of doing the right thing and like going into the coach's office and say, hey guys, I'm here, I'm sorry I'm late, snowstorm, I just left and went with my friends, and we ended up going to the mall that was like right by the Square One Mall is when I played for this team in Mississauga, and the arena was right by this huge mall. So we go to the mall, we're walking around, we're looking for girls, we're 18, right? I get this phone call from Trevor Wiffen, the guy that was my guest last week. And he's like, Sean, where are you? I'm like, Trevor, I went in the dressing room. I didn't see my jersey, so I knew I wasn't playing. I'm just down the street getting a bite to eat. He's like, are you kidding me right now? He's like, listen, you mark my words. You are done here. You know what I mean? Like I was in so much trouble. Like, and I'm like, oh, Trevor, no problem, buddy. I'll talk to you later. I'm just playing it off to my buddies, like that I wasn't just like fired from my team. You know what I mean? So anyway, so me and Trevor had a pretty big laugh about it. And he just said, it's part of growing up. He had to discipline me and this and that. And, like it was just funny now that I'm an adult and I'm having him as a guest on my show, and he just wanted to absolutely kill me at certain times when I was a teenager. Right. So that was just fresh in my mind. If I had more time, I'd be able to think of more.
Well, when we have you back on, you can think of some more stories, but I think that's pretty great. I love it. You're like, let's go to the mall and pick up chicks. Yeah.
What else do you do when you're 18?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's what you do. This is what you do. So good. So tell everybody about the show.
So with the Sheriff podcast, pretty much how it came about, guys, is I was the guest, like how I am now, on a show called Enforcer's Corner. And it was hosted by a gentleman named Kyle Warner, who's based out of Philly. And so Kyle knew that I had mentioned in other podcasts that, I wouldn't mind maybe starting my own podcast. I really like it, blah, blah, blah. So we have our show and we got along really well and whatever. And it was a good show. A couple of days later, he called me. He's like, hey, man, he's like, I'd heard that you wanted to start your own show. So I want to talk to you about that. He's like, how about we join forces? I'm like the tech guy. I have the experience. You're the player. You're the character. We can make it work. We'll call it the Sheriff Podcast. That's your nickname. And then boom, we just did it. And that was 67 episodes ago. We've been doing about 2 a week. So we've been approached by a couple sponsors. We're trying to decide like what we want to do in that regard. For me, it's like a running resume because I want to be a sports broadcaster. I want to be a public speaker, motivational speaker. So this is kind of like, it's rehearsing for all of those things, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm having a lot of fun. And you guys know what the shows do. It brings you together with people. It networks you with so many. You learn so much with the guests and the stories they tell, the things that they're experts in, that they're letting the listeners know about. Like really, it's like one of like a little university or something, like with all the things you learn, right? And yeah, so I'm just having a great time, and I hope it continues.
Now, off the top of your head, obviously you can't play favorites, but do you have a favorite story or a favorite guest that you've brought on that really could that you maybe want to share with any of our followers and having them check that out?
Yeah, I mean, I've been lucky because for some reason, when I reach out to people, I don't know if they think like that maybe I'll find them and beat them up if they don't come on the show or something, but my batting percentage is really high. In other words, like, you know what I mean? Like it's hard to get guests, but I've been really lucky. So I'm kind of like almost everyone I've reached out to has almost said yes. The biggest accomplishment I think I've had was a gentleman named Don Cherry, who's very, very old. Do you guys know about grapes? Do you guys know about Don Cherry?
Yeah. We're just in shock. I'm sorry. We're just in shock.
No. I know you do, but it's just there's an audience in the U.S. that isn't into Don Cherry like Canada is, right? But you guys are a different case, right?
Okay, so you had Don Cherry.
Oh yeah, I've had Don Cherry, George Laraque, Shayne Corson, Mike Commodore. I mean, there's been 67 shows, right?
Wait a second. How did you get Don Cherry?
He's over there and just
because he was the owner.
I'm stuck on Cherry. I'm sorry.
He was the owner of the Mississauga Ice Dogs, that same team of the story I just told about being late for the game. He was my owner then. They traded me to Kingston, which was his hometown. So he came in that day to the arena and was like, look, we're trading you to my hometown. They're going to take care of you. So we kind of had a little connection when I was 17. And then I played for the Rochester Americans for 4 years. That was his big stay in the AHL. He played there the longest. We were both in the same book, Ken Reed's book. It's called One Night Only. It's about guys that played one game in the NHL and what that story was, if it was a disappointment, if it was a long shot like me, like whatever the case was, right? And so we have a couple things in common. And I just reached out to him and he said yes. So, yeah.
I love it. I'm sorry I got so distracted. I was like, I mean, all the other names too are incredible, but I am definitely downloading the Don Cherry episode and listening to it ASAP.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you'll love it. You'll love it. I have so many if you like tough guys and stuff, like I got so many. I think I have, I don't know, like 25 out of the 60 are legit NHL heavyweights that I have on the show as well. So if that's your thing. Yeah.
We'll all have to listen.
Whoa. So let's jump into it. Final three. And then we'll have you share your Instagram handles and where everyone can follow you and listen to your podcast. So first of the three, who is your ultimate hunk of hockey?
Hunk?
Yes.
All right.
We ask everybody, men and women have to answer these.
All right on. Hunk of hockey would have to have been Jerome McGinley.
Oh,
yeah.
Definitely.
Jerome McGinley, man.
Good guy.
Every guy wanted to be like him, so he's the hunk of hockey.
Yeah, there you go. And who's your favorite hockey lady?
Favorite hockey lady? I would have to say Jennifer Botteril. I played with her brother. She's won a couple gold medals for Canada for the women's hockey team. And she was at that big sports conference that I mentioned a little while ago as a keynote speaker.
Awesome. Well, there you go. And do you have any Sidney Crosby stories?
I played with a couple of guys that were on his Rimouski team in junior, right? Like I played with this one guy, his name's Jean-Michel Balduc, and he was in that French league. And he played with Sidney when Sidney was a junior, played when he was getting like 200 points. And, and he, I guess he got $1 for every ticket sold. And that arena held 5,000. So this kid was making $5,000 every home game. He had a deal with like CCM or there's some hockey stick company. And, so I just knew that he was very well off before he got to the NHL.
That's cool. I didn't know that. Did you know that, Breezy?
He got $1 for every ticket. They gave that kid $1 because everybody was there to see him, without a doubt, right? And I think they were 5,200 a sellout. So the guy was making, 5 racks, twice a week, $10,000 a week.
Jeez.
Some weeks probably 5 because it was maybe one game. They had a couple of away games a week. Was some weekends you had 2 home games. Right?
Incredible.
A lot of money for a 17-year-old, right? 16-year-old.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And for him to be as seemingly kind and giving as we hear through all of our stories, that's pretty remarkable for somebody at that age and to be the person he is today. Whether, there's of course the fans who don't like him, but we are a fan of Sidney here on the podcast. So
you got to give credit when credit's due.
Exactly.
Any superstar that goes that long being squeaky clean, good guy, just like LeBron James, man. These guys get so much attention. LeBron James has never been in trouble. Sidney Crosby's never been in trouble, other than LeBron's little backhand the other night against that Detroit Pistons guy. You guys see that? They went berserk.
And, him like leaving Cleveland and, all those things.
No, for sure. But I'm just saying, I'm kidding. He's a good man, though. Good family guy, never been in trouble. Same thing with Sidney, Exactly. So you got to give credit when credit's due. Sidney Crosby's a good guy.
Exactly. Tell everybody where they can follow you on social media.
So for me, it's at Sheriff McMorrow, and it's at the Sheriff Podcast on all platforms.
Awesome. Thank you, Le Sheriff.
Le Sheriff.
Thanks for coming over to our House of Hockey podcast and hanging out with us. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. And in the meantime, you can follow us on social media. Just look for House of Hockey podcast. We'll be back next week.